Welcome back to EDFF. I'm Ding, and tonight we'll talk about some waiver acquisitions to target or avoid this week. And if you enjoy these podcasts, text a friend, tell them to give us a listen, spread the word. Big injuries from week 10, so let's get an update before we jump in. For Do Not Practice, we've got Fant, Tyreek Hill, Harris, Bigsby, Nick Bosa, Kittle, Laporta, Kincaid, and Adams. Most of these guys are vets, probably taking a day off. I know Adams has an illness. Kincaid actually has a knee injury, so Knox is probably a good pickup. Kittle's probably going to be fine, and so will Harris. Hill, he's nursing that injury to his wrist with a torn ligament, so that's an issue. We'll see how that develops. Limited practices this week were Edwards, Aaron Jones, Darnold, Jacobs, CMC, Cedric Wilson, Algier, Cousins, Henry, Brian Thomas Jr., Devonta Smith, Higgins, and Cooper. And then full practices, Love is back. London's good to go. Goddard will play. Brian Robinson Jr. is back. Pittman and Metcalf. And then a couple of big notes. Trevor Lawrence is out. Mac Jones will start for Jacksonville this week. Lloyd is off IR for the Packers, but he's not going to play this week. Richardson will start again. He brings down everybody on the team. Reynolds, he returns from IR. Minshew will start. Not like Vegas is going to win. And then Pacheco is unlikely to play week 11. Now, remember, there's a lot going on. So if you don't have time to monitor all these things, that's what I do. Make it easy on yourself. Follow me on X, and you'll get updates as soon as I do. Now let's look at some key waiver ads you should be targeting or avoiding. We're only looking at ones that have less than 50% rostered, and there's 4 bye-week teams this week. The Cardinals, Panthers, Giants, and Bucks. All right, let's start off at quarterback. My number one pickup is Russell Wilson. He's 23% owned. He's playing at home against Baltimore. They surrender a lot of points. Probably going to be a shootout. It's a no-brainer. He's probably going to get 2 to 3 touchdowns, over 250 yards passing. Number 2 quarterback is Winston. Now, he's 9% owned. He's playing at New Orleans, who gave away their top corner, and they're playing terrible defense right now. He's good for probably 2 or 3 touchdowns. I'd say he's going to have a solid 25-point PPR week. Third quarterback is Derek Carr. He's 13% owned. He's playing at home versus Cleveland, who has a fairly stout defense. But he is showing that with MVS, he's got a wide receiver that he can hit on the deep route, and he can still produce some pretty decent games. So if you need a quarterback for a bye week, this is a decent opportunity. All right, moving on to running back. The number one off the board should be Audric Estime. He's 25% owned right now, but he's a must pick up this week. Looks like the coaching staff is giving him increased reps, and he's looking at potentially being a full-time starter, almost 20 touches a game. So this is the kind of guy that you need to grab. He might actually make your season in the playoffs even better. The number 2 running back is Pacheco. He's probably a high percentage owned in your league, but if somebody dropped him to create some bench space and he's there, you need to grab him. He's going to be a full-time starter, not this week like we talked about, but maybe week 12, week 13, he gets eased in. And then, of course, Hunt is going to get pushed back to 6 to 8 carries as Pacheco takes over the lead. And then the third running back is Spears. He's 46% owned. He's still not going to be the lead back in Tennessee. Pollard's still the man there, but Pollard's nursing a couple of injuries. Spears got 10 carries last week, so there's a potential 60-40 timeshare developing there, and that could be good for a bye week replacement if you need him. At wide receiver, number 1 would be Jerry Jeudy. He's 45% owned at New Orleans. Winston will more likely pepper him with about 8 to 10 targets this week, so you can expect that he has the potential for a touchdown, probably a nice game, maybe 8 catches, 60 yards or better. Number 2 is MVS. He's only 2% owned. I know a lot of people are going to say I'm just chasing him right here, but he brings a lot to the table that's very similar to Shaheed, who they lost early on in the season. He's a speedster with decent hands, and Derek Carr loves to throw the deep ball. So he's probably good for 1 or 2 explosive plays, maybe a 70-yard touchdown. Probably worth a reach this week on a decent matchup. Again, he's touchdown dependent more than likely. The last receiver is Calvin Austin. He's only 1% owned. He's playing at home against Baltimore. He's been seeing increased targets lately. He's got some opportunities to score touchdowns, not only as a wide receiver, but also on special teams. And this game is shaping up to be a shootout. And since Mike Williams doesn't really know the playbook very well, I still think Calvin Austin's speed gives him the ability to get a little bit more playing time than Mike Williams right now until he gets up to speed. All right, moving on to tight end. The number one tight end is Disley. He's 2% owned. He's playing against Cincinnati. He's still getting plenty of targets from Justin Herbert. He's good for about 4 to 6 per game, maybe 5 catches, 40 to 50 yards. If you're lucky, he gets a touchdown here. Number 2 is Brock Wright. Now, we don't know what the status of Laporta is right now. Coach is saying he's day to day. I think the smart thing is to keep Laporta healthy and sit him. Hopefully they do too. And they're at home against Jacksonville. He's 0% owned. He's out there. But if Laporta misses time, Wright actually becomes a decent target. And he has shown in the past he's good for 4 to 5 targets, maybe 30, 40 yards, and a touchdown or two. He can really go off in a week. So he could be a difference maker this week for you. And last, we'll take a look at defenses. The number one defense I have right now is Green Bay. Now, they're 32% owned. They're going up against Chicago in Chicago after they fired their offensive coordinator. So I expect them to open up the playbook, allow Caleb Williams to throw more, which is probably going to lead to more interceptions because his accuracy is terrible. They'll probably miss a couple of times because they're just not ready. They're not on the same page with the new offensive coordinator. So this just makes a really juicy matchup for the Packers this week. I think they're going to score a lot. Number 2 is the Houston Texans. They're 46% owned. They're going into Dallas, playing up against Cooper Rush and a team that cannot run the ball. The only problem is CeeDee Lamb. They should be able to game plan against him, hopefully, double coverage, take him out of the game. The problem is Dallas defense is playing pretty strong as of late, and they could generate some turnovers that lead to short fields and a possible touchdown or two. So they may have a couple scores against them, but they should get plenty of sacks, a couple turnovers. I think they're a premium play this week. And last, the Indianapolis Colts. They're 12% owned. They're going into New York. They face the Jets, who've just been terrible lately. I don't think the Colts really profile as having a big week here, but I think they get a couple of turnovers, a couple of sacks. We know Adams is not feeling well. Maybe he doesn't even play. Aaron Rodgers is banged up. The Jets, they're still going to score points, so don't have really high expectations here. It's really a bye week defense, and it's just not a bad play if there's nothing else out there. Looking ahead to week 12, there are 6 teams on the bye: Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Saints, and Jets. So there are a lot of replacements that you need to find. Now, if you can pick up a waiver ad this week that helps you not only this week, but next week, bonus. Now, before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to our men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And that'll do it for tonight. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can stay up to date on our latest content. And until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase, it's a commitment. Are you ready?